Human beings, in the pursuit for well-being, evolved from hunting and food-gathering stage to the modern era through a series of revolutions like agricultural revolution, industrial revolution, scientific revolution, so on and so forth. The revolutions were driven by scientific knowledge and technologies to tap the natural resources like land, soil, water, biodiversity, mineral, etc. The revolutions were indeed path-breaking, resulting in human development and advancement in every sphere of human life. Unfortunately, the picture of human development is grim in terms of disparities, environmental pollution, consumerist lifestyle, and disrespect to nature. Lopsided development, unequal access to the natural resources and technology to use the resources had led to the disparities or imbalances. The disparity exists between the countries and within the country. It exists between the regions, between the rich and poor, between the landlords and landless peasants, and between urban and rural life. The list is never ending. Every democratic country aspires to narrow down the disparities by implementing infrastructure projects in the backward regions, by ensuring connectivity between regions, by highway development project, by providing education to all, by providing productive employment opportunities to all, and by adopting inclusive growth approach in all its policies. Sustainability should be the driving force behind all our action. Forever, our basic necessities are food, shelter, and clothes. Of course, land is the foremost important natural resource. Our country, the seventh largest in area, boasts of a net sown area of 141 million hectare, exhibits tremendous potential for agricultural production and indeed feeds 1.2 billion logistically. But of course, the land area under cultivation cannot be increased because of growing pressure from urbanization, industrialization, driven by one and only factor, that is population pressure. The world is sustaining a mammoth 6 billion and is finding difficulty in sustainably managing the balance between the population and resource use. In totality, the way forward for the human civilization is challenging and really a daunting task to address global environmental issues. The picture is no different for India. India, accounting for 2.4% of world surface area, supports 17.5% of the world population. By the turn of mid-21st century, India would be privileged to top the world population table. Other demographic attributes like population density, urban population growth had shown an increasing trend ever since we got independence. Of course, growth and development are viable indicators of health of the country. What we need is development that sustains. That is sustainable development. Now let's talk about the population factor. The 20th century began with 1.6 billion people and ended with 6.1 billion people. The United Nations has estimated that the world population grew at an annual rate of 1.23% during 2000 to 2010. India had around 238.4 million people in the beginning of 20th century. And now we have more than 1.2 billion in 2011 increasing more than 4 times in 110 years. At the beginning of 20th century, the density of population was as low as 77% per square kilometer, and it was 382 in 2011. That is 17.5% increase over 2001. And if we talk about the number of urban area increase, then the level of urbanization increased from 27.81% in 2001 census to 31.16% in 2011 census. The proportion of rural population declined from 72.19% to 68.84%. The total urban population in the country as per census 2011 is more than 377 million, constituting 31.16% of the total population. Over the past 50 years, while India's total population increased by about 3 times, the total area of land under cultivation increased by only 20.2%, that is from 118.75 million hectare in 1951 to 141.89 million hectare in 2005-2006. Most of this expansion has taken place at the expense of forest and grazing land. Despite fast expansion of the area under cultivation, less agricultural land is available on per capita basis. In the backdrop of increasing human population and declining productive agricultural land, the mission of food security, which means making available enough nutritious food to all, is nothing less than a Himalayan task. No less is important the elixir of life, the water. Water is said to have innumerable uses. The valuable resource is now under severe stress due to increasing demand for domestic, industrial and agricultural uses. The water availability for agricultural purpose is fast declining due to uncontrolled exploitation of groundwater resources and surface water resources. Total replenishable groundwater potential of the country has been estimated by the Ministry of Water Resources as 431 cubic kilometer per year. Excluding the water reserve for drinking, industrial and other purposes, that is other than irrigation, which is about 16% of the total potential, the potential available for irrigation is 360 cubic kilometer per year. Over 80% of the rural domestic water comes from groundwater sources, since it is more reliable in terms of water quantity and quality. Domestic water use will increase as the population continues to grow and access to water is improved. Recent data from the World Bank indicates that the demand over the next 20 years will double from 25 billion cubic meter to 52 billion cubic meter. When the population is shooting at a high rate and with increasing per capita demand, what will affect to our water resources? Well, that's the biggest question. And to begin with, we take biodiversity. Human beings admire the nature's biodiversity, and from time immemorial, they are dependent on biological diversity for food, fodder, fuel wood. The biological diversity is now threatened due to injudicious extraction of biological resources, intensive agricultural practices, and global environmental change. Traditional and substantial dependence on biodiversity resources for fodder, fuel wood, timber, and minor forest produce has been an accepted way of life for the rural population. With radical demographic changes, the land-to-man ratio and forest-to-man ratio has rapidly declined. The lifestyles and the biomass resource needs having remained unchanged, the remnant forests have come under relentless pressure of encroachment for cultivation and unsustainable resource extraction, rendering the very resource base unproductive and depleted of its biodiversity. Coupled with these incongruities and aberrations in land use, the unsound development strategies have led to increasing threats to biodiversity resources by way of illegal encroachment of 0.07 million hectare of forest, cultivation of 4.37 million hectare, and diversion of forest for river valley projects that constitutes 0.52 million hectare. Industries and townships constitute 0.14 million hectare, while transmission lines and roads constitute 0.06 million hectare, and an additional 1.5 million hectare for miscellaneous purposes. Without biodiversity, our survival would be threatened. What it reflects? Of course, it reflects population stress. The population of India is expected to stabilize at around 1,640 million by the year 2050. As a result, gross per capita water availability will decline from 1,820 cubic meter per year in 2001 to as low as 1,140 cubic meter per year in 2050. Total water requirement of the country for various activities around the year 2050 has been estimated to be 1,450 cubic kilometer per year. This is significantly more than the current estimate of utilizable water resource potential, which is 1,122 cubic kilometer per year through conventional development strategies. Therefore, when compared with the availability of approximately 500 cubic kilometer per year at present, the water availability around 2050 needs to be almost trebled. But what about the current and future water requirements? Well, with the rapidly growing population, along with the industrial and urbanization activities, the demand for water is expected to increase even faster. It is pertinent to note that more attention is also required to scientifically assess the water requirements for ecosystem security. Total vehicle population of India is more than 85 million, that is about 1% share of the world. The increase in vehicles as well as the presence of other motorized forms of transportation like taxis, autos, trains, buses, etc. will contribute to the already existent large amount of vehicular emissions. The worst thing about vehicular pollution is that it cannot be avoided, as the vehicular emissions are emitted at near ground level. So, we are surrounded with shrinking land. Food production will be limited with shrinking land resources. The increasing population puts tremendous pressure on natural resources like biodiversity, water, etc. So what we have to learn? Shall we think before we ask more than what are basic requirements? Let us take initiative to maintain the sustainability of our planet Earth.